Welcome back to another episode of the Inquisitive Mamba podcast. This is episode 65. It's a pleasure to have Mark Matthews on today's show. If you don't know who Mark Matthews is, he is a former Division I college basketball athlete and also a former Division II All-American. So it's a pleasure to have you on today's show, Mark. I remember in high school, I watched you. I never got a chance to play against you when I was younger in high school, but it's a pleasure to have you on. And I just remember the times how dominant you were in high school, and actually got a chance to look at your stats. You average right around like 25 points per game in your junior and senior year. So it's just a pleasure to have you on. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So I first really wanted to just get right into it. But so my first question for you was is you played basketball your whole life, but where did it start from the beginning? Like, let's just go back in time from when you were a kid and like, where did it all start?
Well, originally, I kind of started playing basketball at the age of 4. My dad was very big into basketball growing up. I grew up in New Jersey, so up in the tri-state area, basketball is a huge thing compared to Florida. Football is huge. Football, football, football. So
Yeah.
in like the tri-state area, like New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, basketball is something, that they take very, very serious. And my dad was always a firm believer that, starting at a young age, but especially playing up a little bit. So when I was 4 years old, I was already playing against like, 6, 7 year olds. I was always playing up an age group. Whether when I was 5, I played up against 7, 8 year olds. When I was 6, it just kept going on and on. And, just growing up my whole life, just being around the game of basketball, I feel like, especially from an early age, I kind of felt like that's where I felt, the connection with it and the love for the game.
So when you say you played up and like explain that in terms of like, okay, I was really young and I was just playing against higher competition and that also made me better. Is that something that you would kind of go along with
Yeah,
those
I
lines there?
mean, you know, so I'll even fast forward, when I was in eighth grade, when I was in eighth grade, I was already playing against, 10th and 11th graders, off rip. I didn't feel like at that time, I understand some kids are a little different and they want to play their age group, whether it's seventh graders versus seventh graders, eighth versus eighth, or age group. But, I kind of felt like, if I really wanted to develop my skill set in game, you got to be able to play against these older guys because at some point in your life, you're going to have to play against them,
Yeah, of
whether it's,
course.
your freshman year or whatever year you want to start. So I kind of felt like, why not just start earlier? And, I feel like that benefited me because, especially with the way I played as I got older, I was already so accustomed to just playing at that age group and playing at that pace and, playing with that physicality. Because the older you get, I mean, everybody knows, whether it's high school, college, or professional, the game always changes the pace, the speed, the physicality, the whole nine, just the way you prepare for it. So it was always an advantage, just being able to play up and, kind of have that knowledge of knowing how things were ran.
Yeah, for sure. So that makes sense to me. So now going into like your high school time, like let's just go, you said you were, 4 or 5 years old at that time. Let's just, fast forward about 10 years later in the high school times, Fort Myers High School. When you started off playing in high school, like where was your game then to like from, your time when you were younger? Like how did it all like develop into the player you became in high school?
I don't like tooting my own horn when it comes to this subject, but I kind of prided myself on my work ethic, my
Hmm.
entire life, like especially in the game of basketball, anyone that knows me or anyone that was close to me from my freshman year to my senior year, they knew how hard I worked, whether it was getting to school. I used to literally every day at Fort Myers High School. I don't know if, I mean, it doesn't matter now because it wasn't a lot I could say. This is what, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I I was, so Guttery, obviously, who Scott Guttery is. He was my coach at the time at Fort Myers. And,
Yeah.
he lived right down the road, but he was the only one who would really let me in the gym, whether it was before or after school.
Oh
So
wow.
one day I found out that the assistant principal at the time, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but I found out that he would always. So Fort Myers had two weight rooms. There was a stadium football weight room, and there was the one that was right in front of the gym, right there. There was
Hmm.
another one for like PE classes.
Okay.
And I found out that the assistant principal, would get to the school at around 4:30, 5 o'clock every day to lift in that weight room. So
Wow.
once I found that out, I was like, hey, I know this sounds kind of crazy, but I know you have keys to all the gyms. Like, do you mind if I meet you here at 5 o'clock and like you just let me in the gym? Like, you don't got to worry about me. Like, I can set the gun up, I can put everything back. And he kind of looked at me side eye, like, you sure you're gonna be here? Like, I'll be here, but like, I was like, yeah, like, I'm gonna be there. Like, I'll be there every day. Don't worry. Like, you just let me know and I'll be there. So, and I lived in Estero at the time. People aren't familiar with the geographic of where we live. Estero is about, you know, maybe 30 minutes away from Fort Myers High School.
Yeah.
So I literally was getting up probably at 4:15 every day, and I would
Wow.
drive in my car, and I'd get to the gym at around, I don't know, 4:50, 4:55, and I'd lace up, and I was, going through my workout at 5:15 to about 6:30 every day.
Wow.
And it was just something, that I fell in love with. Whether it was before school or after school, I would do that. Then I would do school during the day, and then we had a basketball class. It was like a weightlifting class, like that seventh, eighth period every day, and I'd
Mhm.
get my lift in. And the way I kind of organized my workouts is, that morning workout would be more of a skill set workout. Like, okay, we're not going to do a lot of shooting. We're going to do something that whether it's ball handling, finishing, some defensive stuff. Like, I always mixed it up because right after that weight training class, school ended at like 1:35. Guttery would then let me in the main gym on the gun. And I would always make sure that's when I'd really get my shots up. I'd really just focus on jump shooting that whole hour I was in there. Because on the gun, it's an easy machine to where if you play basketball, you can just set it up per spot and it'll count your makes and you can really get a lot of reps up in a quick amount of time. I'd probably make every day. People think I'm probably, gonna BS this, but I swear to God, you can ask anybody, I would make 500 every single day, every
Wow.
single day. And it was a habit for me, like it kind of thing, like you kind of speak about it on your other episodes, like when you start doing these habits, you fall in love with it and you get accustomed to things. And, it was something for me, like it got to that point where like if I understood that everybody needed a rest day, I always did that. Sundays were my rest day. I wouldn't lift, I wouldn't shoot, I would physically force myself not to do anything. But those other 6 days during the week, it would just feel irregular or like just odd if I didn't do something, if I didn't benefit myself, like if I would, whether it was a workout before school or with that weightlifting or getting shots up, like there was something I had to do to make sure that I got myself better because preparation to me is so key. And that was the root to my success throughout my high school, college, and professional careers. I really prided myself on my preparation, because I don't care what you say. The way you prepare yourself is how you perform. And when you get to those games, or whether it's those practices or scouts, and if you're not prepared, you definitely feel the difference if you do or don't do it. And I felt the difference. And like I said, I always just prided myself on that. And some people always ask me, like, well, why do you do it? Why do you do it? If you love something, you'll do it. You'll go out there and you'll do it as much as you want or can, because deep down, it doesn't matter what so and so thinks about you or other people. It matters what you feel and what you want to do, because you're the one that's doing it and you're the one that wants to go on that journey. So that's just something I really took pride in. And I, I I would, if I could go back, I would do it all over again. I'd do the same routine. I would do everything, because I know if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have had the career I had.
I really really like that one a lot, and I think it's a remarkable story. But for me, my question for you is do you think your high school basketball career would have been the same if that gentleman didn't give you the keys to shooting, letting you in the gym early? Because I really feel like that changed your entire mindset. And I'm sure you could have gotten shots up elsewhere. Your high school athlete could have gotten into the gym at different times. But do you think really like that was just a moment where like something's really speaking to me, like this is meant to happen, like take me through that?
Man, I kind of agree with you, but I'll be honest with you. I was so stubborn with the process that even if he did or didn't let me in, I was getting in there regardless. I was gonna find a way to get in there. Like I said, if
Yeah.
you love something, you're gonna get it done. Like there'd be days where, I'll even backtrack to when I first transferred to Fort Myers. When I first got to Fort Myers, they never really had a kid with my work ethic. So
Wow.
the year I got there, that was the year before actually I got there. That was Fort Myers' first real bad season in a long time. They were like 13 and 15. They got bounced in the first round of districts. They really weren't a cohesive unit. They just weren't. That was one of the worst Fort Myers teams they ever had. And like and like a lot of people know, Fort Myers has a rich basketball tradition for their high school. Like ever
Yes,
since that
yes.
2010 state championship, it just prided itself on it. Just the way they run their program, the team, the whole nine. And so it's not there anymore. If you go to Fort Myers High School, it's now the faculty parking lot. But that parking lot used to have outdoor rims. They were
Wow.
double, triple rims. There used to be two full outdoor basketball courts, asphalt, white paint, metal backboard, triple rims, the whole nine. And I would literally, I texted Guttery. I was like, "Hey, is there anybody can get in the gym?" And at first, it was kind of like, "No, we can't. It's a liability issue." So what I would do is I'd pack a separate bag with a ball in it, and I would put that bag in the locker room because obviously I don't want to carry two bags on me all day. I have my school bag and that bag. And I literally would bring this ball with me and a band and a jump rope, and I'd put that in the locker. And as soon as school ended, I'd go get changed. And my mom used to teach at Fort Myers Middle because at this time I couldn't drive yet. So the year
Right.
until I could drive.
Yeah.
And high school gets out at 1:35, middle school gets out at 4 o'clock. So by the time I really got down to the locker room, it was like 1:55, 2 o'clock, till I really got ready to go. And I'd get ready and I'd probably be outside on that court putting myself through a workout in the heat in Florida. No shade,
Woo!
no nothing. From 2:15 to about 4 o'clock till my mom would pick me up every single
Wow.
day. And then once Guttery kind of saw me, I did that. I was on the outside court probably for I was I probably did that for 2 months. 2 months straight,
Wow.
5 times a week, every day. And I think one day Guttery finally realized that, okay, like we're gonna get you in the gym somehow. Like we're gonna make sure, and because I didn't think he really understood how serious I was about it. I mean, I would rebound for myself. I didn't care what it took. I did literally everything in my power to make sure. Like I said, I kind of fell in love. I was stubborn with it. I was like, I got to do something, whether it's an hour of this, 45 minutes, 2 hours of this. Like I had to do something, and I wanted to just push myself because I knew what it took. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but like I said, you just get to that point when you get into a rhythm and a routine that it just you're kind of just on it's I don't want to keep calling it routine. It's like a pattern. Like you're doing it every day. Your body is just accustomed to doing it every single day, and when you don't do it, it just feels odd and off. And it got to that point. I again, sometimes you got to sacrifice things, and that was a sacrifice. Don't get me wrong. Some of those days were miserable out there. We're talking 100 degrees, 95 degrees, humidity. It's not a cloud in the sky, and I'm out there and I'm having to go inside and fill up this empty water bottle with the water fountain and come back out. But I don't regret doing any of that because it helped with everything.
Lot to unpack there, but it's just amazing to hear your story, and that's only really the beginning of you in high school and stuff, and it's just remarkable. But my question for you is I know there's been so many players in the past. I mean, for me, when I was younger, I was nowhere near the college basketball player like you, or never got to that level. Basketball was my second sport, but when I was younger, my dad would show me Pistol Pete Maravich videos, like him dribbling up and down the railroad tracks and stuff, and like Jerry West, and just players like that didn't have the access to technology. Now we're talking about the time when you were younger. There was YouTube, but there was no social media clips
Oh,
of this
absolutely
guy
not.
shooting and that guy shooting. How did you stay so motivated and determined to stay out there in the 100-degree heat? I know it's reward when in the end when you're hitting the last shot at the state championship or this and that, but like how did you stay so locked in and like work on your craft, your game?
Man, it goes back to when I was younger. I literally just loved the game so much that even when I was done working out, whether there'd be an NBA game on, whether there'd be a college game on, whether it'd be a semi-pro game on, I was tuned. I watched it. Like, and back then, like you said, the social media compared to nowadays, it's night and day. Like, it's not the same thing. Like, what these kids can do and the amount of advanced technology they can get, and just like you said, the whole nine, the film breakdown, clips. It's night and day. Because if I had that, I mean, I couldn't imagine what I could do. But it was different because I loved the game so much that I understood there's more to this than just putting in the work and playing. You know, you have to evaluate the game. Even nowadays, film is such a key aspect of any sport seeing it from a different angle, evaluating, scouting, any of those terminologies you want to use, it is so important because when you see those things from a different angle, whether it's how you're coming off a pin down, a ball or a pin down or a ball screen or a DHO, or whether you're in help side defensively, or you're scouting a team's offense, you're scouting their man defense. When you see that from that different angle, it helps you analyze things. And when you go on the court, it really shows. So back then we had this technology system. It's called Huddle. It's still around, but it's
Yeah.
not as used because Synergy kind of took over the game, especially when
Yeah.
I was in college. And Huddle was this thing where coaches had to post the clips on there in order for you to watch them. It
Yeah.
wasn't like a source of data where, like, if you filmed it, it would automatically upload it. Like, you had to film it, and then you had to literally, the coach had to upload it. If you didn't upload it, the only person who could see it was the person who filmed it.
Yep.
So, I got lucky where, Guttery, gave me a Huddle login. And, from that point on, I literally just, after my workouts, I'd go home, I'd watch. I watched, it's kind of weird. I watched every game from that Fort Myers season the year before that I wasn't there. I
Wow.
watched every single game, whether it was a loss, a win, a blowout, a close game, a bad game, a hard game to watch. I watched everything because I wanted to know what went wrong that year, because I wanted to make sure in my 3 years that I had left there, I wasn't going to have that same experience, whether it was for me personally or our team. We I just felt, like I said, I fell in love with just getting everyone prepared. And I was a firm believer in, and you can ask guys around me, some guys wouldn't always work with me, but man, when I would poke guys, like, hey, come work out with me. Hey, come do this. Hey, come do that. Hey, come watch this. Like, because I wanted guys to understand that if I did it, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Like, if we all have the same goal and the same mindset and the same everything, there should be no reason why we can't all accomplish the same thing. And there'd be days where there'd be guys like, man, I don't want to do this, man, I don't want to do that, but I would put it into words that would make them want to do it. I'd be like, man, do it and you'll see how you feel after. Do it with me, man. I'll help you. I'll push you through it. And there'd be days where I didn't want to do it. There'd be days I wake up, I'm like, damn, I'm tired, man. I'm sore. I just want to go home and watch TV and play video games. But I didn't do that because I knew at the end of the day how bad I would feel if I didn't do that. If
Yeah.
I didn't sit there and do it, I would just have this feeling that would eat me up inside. Like, damn, I didn't do that. Like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so lazy? And no matter if I was 100% or 1%, I wanted to do it. Just knowing that having a guy there with you to do it, it makes it easier. And, it also makes you feel good because he's on your team. It's not like you're not just benefiting from it. He's benefiting from it. The next person's benefiting from it, because basketball is a team game, man. It's a team game because, you know, yeah, you could have one guy get 40 and win a game, but there's going to be games in the season where you're going to need that so-called partner of yours to hit a big shot. You're going to need that teammate to step up with the confidence and take a charge or guard somebody, or whether it be make a play or play off the ball. Like, you need those guys. So, I just always poked my teammates to come work with me, man, whether they wanted to or not, because I knew at the end of the day, I can always control what I can control, but I'm going to need these guys at some point. And I want to make sure they're just as prepared as I am.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And I think this kind of goes back to actually is recently going on right now with the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler, and how he's like the fearless leader for the Heat, and how all these guys around him are considered in the media. They're not as talented. I mean, there's still, professional NBA players. I think Draymond Green was saying that, you got to give credit where credit is due. Some people are just, kicking the tires on them because,
Mhm.
oh, well, they're just the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler's running the show, and, Gabe Vincent's undrafted and this, and that. But Draymond Green was saying there were still NBA players. Kind of goes back to the point where you were saying that, Jimmy Butler is pushing these guys around him to make the team better. It's a team game.
Yeah,
And I think I've seen throughout the media and the Heat's remarkable playoff run. And, everyone's going to give credit to Eric Spoelstra, and that's, give credit where credit is due. He deserves his flowers. But the
for sure.
players are the ones buying in through this culture. They are the ones that are playing in the games. They're the ones making the shots. They're the ones taking the charges, running all these different sets and plays. But for me, it kind of goes back to where you were saying with you're in the role of Jimmy Butler. You're trying to motivate these guys and buy into something that this can be something special if you put the time in. It may not look pretty, sitting there in the gym by ourselves with no crowd, no fans, but in the end, it paid off.
Man, I'll tell you a funny story about that. So my sophomore year, that first year I was at Fort Myers, we fast forward to the end of the year, we ended up winning the district championship that year. After that rough year, we won like 24 games. We only had like 5 losses. We're back. We had a good year. I was a sophomore. I was leading Fort Myers High School in points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game. I was filling up the stat sheet. There was a team in Miami that they were in our region. So the way it worked, if a lot of people aren't familiar with in the state of Florida, there's classifications. It's 1 through 8, and we were 5A at the time. And every year, we had to go run into Miami Norland. And I'll fast forward. So we get to the Sweet 16. We're one of the top 16 teams left in the state. And Miami Norland, they've won the state championship now. I think at this point, it's been 2 years in a row. And I'm close to some of these guys I'm about to name, but we get there and we have to go to Norland. Miami Norland is in Miami Gardens. It's right in the central. It is a roughneck neighborhood. It's a blue collar city. It's bad intersections, the whole nine, man. It's right in the center of that area of Miami Gardens. And growing up, back to my point, I credit my dad for this. Little AAU tournaments we went to were not the best areas. They just weren't.
No.
We'd walk into gyms and it'd be me and a couple other white kids, and we'd be playing against some inner city teams, and they would look at us and be like, "Oh, these kids, we're gonna punk them," and we just never got punked. We'd end up whooping them. There'd be sometimes there'd be close games, but growing up and doing that, and I'll fast forward back to that game. We ended up losing that game. It was a pretty ugly game. I actually had the flu going into that game my sophomore year. And I ended up having, I think, 27 and 12. And I took a B12 shot. I took a B12 vitamin, and I did everything I could. And, I don't want to call some guys out, but I could tell from Jump Street of that game that some guys on our team were spooked just from the atmosphere. That was one of the most intense atmospheres I ever played in high school, Miami Norland. I mean, there was over 4,000 people in that gym. The lighting was dark. Like I said, we were in a rough neighborhood. We had a police escort in the gym. It was loud.
Wow.
They were banging. It was a lot. I was a sophomore, and I just didn't get fazed by that. But I remember looking around like, damn, I got 102 fever. I'm on a B12 vitamin, and I'm not worried about none of this.
Wow.
But I see it in their eyes. Like, I'm in the locker room. We're sitting there. Like, some of these guys are scared. And we'll fast forward. We end up losing that game, and Miami Norland ended up winning the state championship that year. And I'm a firm believer if we won that game, we would have won the state championship, because the two teams that we had to beat after that, we played earlier that year. We whooped them. Balin Jesuit and Tampa Jesuit. We whooped them early in the year.
I remember
obviously,
Tampa Jesuit. I remember Tampa
obviously,
Jesuit, yeah.
obviously Miami Norland, ended up pretty much dismantling those teams. And I'll fast forward to the summer. So in June is the only month in Florida where you can play with your high school team. It's designated for team camps. FGCU team camp rolls around. We're in the semifinal of the team camp versus, guess who? Miami Norland. And I had that marked in the back of my mind for so long, so long. Gym was packed. I actually had FGCU at that game. So FGCU didn't recruit me at all, pretty much. But that game, they're like, we want to see what you can do, because you know what they thought? They thought I was going to have a bad game and get punked versus a good team. And I knew it. And I knew going into that game. And just back to what you said about Jimmy, it it fired me up so much internally that I remember before the game, I know it was a summer game, and, they had their full team. We had our full team. It was a big game. They were recruiting guys on Norland. They just wanted to watch me. And, I kind of took offense to that because, with the confidence I have, I was like, I'm better than all those kids. I know I am. I don't care what people say. You might not be, you might be, but I told myself that. And I was a firm believer I was. And, before the game started, everyone was kind of joking around. We already played 2 games that day. Guys are it's a summer game. If you played basketball, you take them seriously, but you don't take them seriously because they're just summer games. And, I was really warming up, getting for real. Like, I was like, dude, like, so there's a minute to go in warm-ups, and Guttery's talking to us. And he puts the starters out there. And I grab all the starters, and I bring them in. You probably know, it was James Brunson, Ryan Roberts,
Yeah.
Bensley Bornelis,
Yep.
myself, and this kid Jalen McSwain, who was on JV.
I
He
know
wasn't even a part of the game.
I know
He was
Jalen
on
really well.
JV. He
That's
was
funny.
on JV, and he was about to
Yeah.
play against DeJuan Hernandez, who was committed to the University of Miami. And I said, Jalen, I said, don't worry about this. I brought them all together. I said, guys, get me the fucking ball. I said, get me the
Woo.
ball. I said, get me the ball. I don't care. I said, get me the ball. And fast forward, I ended up having 44, and we beat them by 6
Wow.
at
Damn.
FGCU team camp. And I don't want to gloat, but I was talking my shit to the FGCU staff after the game, walking off the floor, because I knew what Dooley was thinking in that game. He thought I was going to get punked, and I don't care what anybody says, man. If you know how I played throughout college, I don't get punked. I don't care what you say, whether you're a 5-star or no star. I don't care. Like I'm gonna play you like I'm gonna play everybody else. And you can look those highlights up on YouTube. Hoop Diamonds has a whole mixtape of it, but I hit my first 2 shots, and I knew the rest of the game. I was locked in. I was locked in the whole game, and that same team with the same roster won a state championship, and we just beat y'all a couple months later in a different environment when I was full strength. So I didn't have the flu. I didn't have nothing, and I let it be known, like anything is possible if you just tell yourself you could do it, man. And don't let anybody sit here and tell you can't do it, because I had so many people. There was everybody. Mariner was up there watching. Naples was up there watching. Island Coast. They thought we were going to get blown out, and they honestly thought I was going to get locked up, and it was the other way around. And from that moment on, I think that's when everyone realized, like, okay, this kid's for real. Like this kid just gave the best team in the state of Florida 44 and beat them single-handedly by himself with 3 JV players. I literally had 3 JV players start besides Ryan and James, who are on varsity with me. Everybody else is a JV player. We didn't have anybody that tournament. And like you just you can will your guys. Like if they see you doing it, they'll follow. They will follow. It's all a matter of your mindset. It doesn't matter if you're 6'10", 6 foot, if you have this skill set or not. The human mind is a powerful thing, man. And if you really just put your mind to it, you can speak it into existence. And that's when I kind of feel like I turned the page in my high school career, because I was already a good high school player, but that game really set the tone for the rest of my high school career.
And that was a summer game too. That wasn't even a regular season.
It wasn't even a regular season game. It was a summer game at a team camp at FGCU, and we were on the main court, and we were in the semifinal, and we already beat some good. We haven't lost a game there, and I kind of let it known. And what kind of got me mad about that is I ended up having 44 that game, and FGCU ended up offering 2 kids on Norland, but not me.
Wow.
And I, for the rest of my high school career, I kept that in the back of my head. Like, okay, like I had one of the best games you guys have ever seen from a kid in this area. You still did that. And whether they were watching or not, whatever game I played, I kept that mental note in the back of my head, man. Like, and I have no hate or disrespect. I know Flyover, who's at Jacksonville now, and I knew Dooley, and I respect them tremendously. But when you test someone's character like that, and actions speak louder than words, and when you let it be known that you feel some type of way by those decisions you make, it's like I said, it speaks volumes. So I feel like that really amped me, and from there on out, man, I just I was on another level for those last 2 years of my high school career, and I let it be
Yeah.
known.
I'm glad you mentioned that again, because I remember earlier in the show I said like 25-ish points per game, but I have your exact numbers here. I just had to pull it up again. And yours, both years, you 1 year was 21.3 points per game in your junior year, and your senior year, that's when you averaged 25.2 points per game. But your sophomore year, it says on Max Preps. Now I know Max Preps, this was a while ago. I'm not sure if it's 100% accurate, and you can say otherwise. It says 6.1 points per game. Now is this accurate? Maybe not.
That is my sophomore year.
Yeah, that's what it says on Max
Oh,
Preps.
yeah, that's very off. I don't want to boost stats, but
Right.
I was definitely at least 20 flat a game my sophomore year. I mean, I
I,
did.
that's
I
what I.
ended up.
Yeah, because
I
on Max
scored. I
Preps, I was
scored. Yeah,
confused.
that's odd. I scored. I was a 2000. I still hold the all-time scoring, single
Yeah,
season scoring, single season rebounding, and all-time rebounding records at Fort Myers.
yeah, I have it.
Still
I
to
have
this
it.
day.
I have it on here. Yeah, so I was just
So I don't
confused
know
when I
if
saw that.
I don't know how you average 6 points a game, but you score over 2,000 points in your high school career. But 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 yeah, I mean, no, that's definitely false. That's definitely
But
wrong for my sophomore year.
Max Preps is confusing because that was so many years ago, and they don't really use that as much as they do now. I mean, I guess for high school they really like focusing on that, but now you have like Twitter and stuff. But so I was just confused by that. But we cross
Yeah,
off.
that's off.
Yeah, we'll cross off that there. But no, it's good to hear like your Jimmy Butler moment, and for kids at home, it's pretty inspirational because now in the NBA everyone just sees LeBron and Curry and Ja, and I mean, Curry might be a little different because he's not as, skill set wise as gifted as Ja and LeBron, but Jimmy Butler is just a great story. And it
It's
kind
yeah, it's all a mindset, man. Like I tell you, like, that guy went to a junior college and then he had one scholarship offer to Marquette and he made the most of his opportunity. Like, you never know who's actually watching. I tell some of the younger kids I work with all the time too, like man, like when we're in here working out, like whether it's just me or you, like act like Mike Krzyzewski is here.
right, right.
Act like Bill Self is here.
Yeah.
Like so when the opportunity comes, you're accustomed to people being there. And I don't, like, and I get this generation's different, but man, that's just how I thought. Like I always thought, especially whether it's a work related event or it's basketball or it's anything, like there's somebody always watching. There's somebody always watching because at the end of the day, if you want to be the best or you want to be at the top of something, you're always going to look at how can I make something? How can I make myself better? How can we make this company better? How can we make this organization better? It happens all the time in sports when teams don't win the NBA finals or they don't get to the Super Bowl or they don't win a World Series or companies don't put up the numbers they want for a year. They sit down in these meetings and they say, what do we have to do to be better than this year? So I don't care what people say, man. You should always be improving no matter what the circumstances are, because at the end of the day, you might get a phone call or you might get an opportunity you weren't expecting, and you got to be ready for that moment.
You got to stay ready. And the thing too, I'm glad you just brought that up because there's, plenty of teams that lost this year in the NBA playoffs and they're not as talented as, or they're very talented, but they don't have the work ethic, and you can just see like, you're a basketball
Absolutely.
player and you understand the game very well. You can tell by guys' body language. Oh, we didn't buy in. Like the Grizzlies excuse was as well, Ja was dealing with the gun issues, and that's a whole nother story. But they were just as good as the Lakers, if not better, and they lost in the first round and they got punked. And it just goes back to they were right there with the Lakers, and in the regular season the Grizzlies were great. They were the what one
They
or
were
two
one of the best teams. They were the 2 seed in the Western Conference the entire season.
yeah, they were the 2 seed for a while, and then their two bigs got hurt. But the point is like the Lakers wanted it more, and you could just see, and they couldn't the Grizzlies couldn't get away from the whole off the court issues with Ja Morant. It just really affected
Yeah.
them in their play. And like you said, this summer they need to be in the gym working together as a core unit. But clearly that's not the case right now because Ja's too busy on Instagram Live hanging out with the guys. With it's
You know,
just
that's why I
it's tough.
respect
It's
that's why I
tough.
respect I'm a huge Giannis Antetokounmpo fan. I think
Yeah,
I'm a huge Giannis Antetokounmpo fan for a lot of reasons, man. Yeah, he's 7 foot and he moves differently and he's gifted as a physical specimen. He's one of the more gifted players this game has ever seen. But something you can't teach, man, is even after he lost that series to the Heat, and he was hurt. People don't
yeah,
understand, like when you're the best player on your team and you physically can't go, it gets to you mentally. Like you can try and you can push through things and you can do it, but if you physically aren't 100% and can't go, you can't put your team in a position to where okay, we're playing 4-on-5 now, regardless if you're the superstar or not. It hurts, man. I like what he said. Like not every year is a failure. Every
yes,
year is a stepping stone. I loved that message, and I kind of reiterated that to some of the, like, again, the younger guys I work with. Like, just because we came in here today and you didn't shoot the ball as well as you wanted to, or you didn't work out as well as you wanted to, this wasn't a failure. Okay. Every day it's like this. It's ebbs and flows. And we're gonna be really good one day and we're gonna be really bad one day. But the reason we're in here is so that we can have more good days and bad days. And people forget, like he did win an NBA championship. He
yeah,
did go on a run. It's
right.
winning, going back to back is the hardest thing in sports. As a team, when you win one, you now have the biggest target on your back in the entire association, whether it's NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL. You have the biggest target on your back. You were the clear-cut best team. You won the whole thing. You don't
Yep.
think those other 32 to 33 organizations are sitting in that room going, "What do we have to do to beat them?" And they do it every year. Look at the Warriors this year. I don't care what people say. They brought back the same roster, they brought back the same team, the same style of play, and a
Yep.
team figured them out. And a
Yeah.
team literally said, "This is what we got to do. These are the adjustments we got to make." It's always about making those adjustments because there's no way you can do the same thing and just be consistent like that. In order to be the best, you're going to have to, okay, we're going to do what we did that got us here, but let's just tweak little things. Let's just tweak little things. There's always tweaks going on because whether it's a scouting report or a film breakdown or how we guard a team, I mean, any athlete or any basketball player I know or football or any athlete, you don't plan for a team the same way. Like, for example, the Golden State Warriors have one of the most unique playing styles in the NBA. James Wiseman, he struggled playing there because they're bigs. They don't play through a big.
Right.
They're big like Draymond is. He sets a lot of off-ball screens. He does a lot of DHOs. He's a big pass-first oriented four-man. And then when James Wiseman gets traded to Detroit, where it's a different situation, a lot of guys who are his age, they're expecting him to get the ball in these positions that he's comfortable getting the ball. And his first 7 games there, he was averaging 20 and 10, looking like the #1 overall draft pick that everyone thought he was going to be. So, it's tough because not everyone plays the same way. So you have to prepare differently for all these teams. You're not going to guard Steph Curry the same way you guard Giannis. You're not going to guard Giannis the same way you guard Jimmy Butler. It's all different scenarios. So those little adjustments are big, man. They really pay dividends.
No, I really appreciate you saying that. And then for the people at home, because you're a basketball trainer, you played college basketball, you played basketball your whole life. Some people really don't understand the game of basketball; they just kind of watch it. But for you, you know it. DHO is a dribble, handoff. The pin down is basically there was a play that the Nuggets and the Lakers, the last game when they played, they ran a pin down for LeBron, and then pretty sure actually it was Jamal Murray. He was helping on defense, help defense basically, and then Aaron Gordon kind of came around the screen basically. He was like trailing it basically. So like there's
Yeah, he
yeah,
fought over that screen, and what
yeah,
Jamal did was he stunted the gap, and what that did was that forced LeBron to pick up his dribble in that final possession. And
yep,
once he picked up his dribble at that point, that's a key indicator. We call it wall up, where at that point, you're not being as over aggressive to get the ball because he can't dribble again. So you're just he either has to shoot or pass it. So that's a good point of view right there, man. Yeah, just seeing the game from a different angle. Those are little things that a lot of guys don't see.
no, a lot of guys don't understand that, and it's really good to see now, especially with social media and clips, and you can break it down and actually understand it. And like, okay, the game's over, the series is over, the media is going to clown the Lakers, and that's fine. They got swept 4-0, but every game they were in were very hard fought. I mean, they were up 15 in game four
I mean,
against the Nuggets.
I was talking to one of my friends. I mean, you could make an argument that games 1, 2, and 4, the Lakers should have won. You can make that
Yes.
argument. I mean, in
Yeah.
game 2, they were literally up 16 with 8 minutes to go in the fourth,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
they ended up losing by 5. We're talking a 21-point swing. Like that's a big deal, and it all comes down to possessions. I mean, the NBA is so fascinating because it is truly a game of runs. I don't
yes,
care what you say. A 20-point lead in the NBA
it's not
is
safe.
a 10-point lead.
Yeah, it's not safe. I mean, look at game one from the Lakers and the Nuggets series when they Darvin Ham made the adjustment for Rui to switch on to Jokic and then have AD roam off the ball. So like you just see those little adjustments, like you said, those in-game adjustments are so key. And it's crazy because some coaches are so focused on the other little things. I got to get my star of the ball, or I got to do this, or I got to do that. But those little key in-game adjustments can, I mean, that game. I mean,
What
the
what
Lakers
makes
should have
yeah,
stole that game. They should have won that game if it wasn't for
they
the
should have. Game 2, I thought game 2 was big because you're down 2-0 now, going home.
yeah,
You're going back to LA, but when you defend your home court in the NBA, that's huge
yeah,
because now your mindset is we just got to get one on the road. We get one
right,
on the road, we're up 3-1
yeah,
or 4-0 like they did. They
right,
4-0'd them, but
yeah,
either way, if hypothetically they were to split that, you're going back to Denver up 3-1. You
yeah,
have home court, and Denver. being the hardest place to play in the NBA due to altitude. Every NBA player literally says on any podcast platform that Denver is the
100%.
hardest. It's the hardest place to play. It's the hardest place to play because of the elevation. But no, man, it's different. Like I said, you're not always going to have the ball in your hands. And I understand superstars and other guys, and they always want the ball in their hands, but it's what you do without the ball that really makes you an effective player. If you can go get a teammate open, if you can cut without the basketball, if you can organize a play without the ball or just be effective without the ball, it makes life so much easier on you, because what people don't understand is we call it a term when you're ball watching. When your
Yeah.
man is literally just staring at the ball, there's so many other things going on the basketball court that you have no idea about that affect that play. That's why Nikola Jokic to me is the best at it, because what he does with the ball, I understand. He's got 14 triple doubles in the NBA playoffs. His numbers are off the charts. His efficiency is off the charts. But what you don't understand is what he sees before that action happens. He's making that read. He's making that pass because he knows the whole play and every single aspect of what's going to happen here. Whether Jamal slips it or Aaron Gordon curls the screen, or he's got Michael Porter Jr. coming off the pin down over here with Bruce Brown slipping that screen. He knows every action that's going to happen. So if that first read's not there, it's right to the second, it's right to the third, it's right to the fourth. It's like a quarterback when he's reading options, he's reading his checkdowns. He
Yep.
knows every single option that's going to happen. Like I said, that preparation is it's very key because it keeps you locked in.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was actually saying to a friend of mine a few days ago, Jokic just gives me that similar sense of Tom Brady. They're not extremely gifted athletically, but their ability to read the defense, their ability to see exactly what happens, like you said, before it all occurs. And that's really what gets me. They're just so much smarter than the other guy on the court. And to counter that, basically, I mean, LeBron is also very smart, but he's in a different category because he's so gifted. But Jokic just gives me that same similar feel like Tom Brady. Just they can read the defense, they can see what's going to occur, and they're just such smart basketball players. They don't make many mistakes, and if they punish you in certain ways that you don't think it's going to happen, you're like, well, how did he even do that? Or like the
Well,
shot that he
back to that
yeah.
point. Yeah, back to that point. I mean, I like the Tom Brady comparison, but I would kind of give it a Mahomes kind of look, when Mahomes plays, people
Mm,
even after this year, he lost Tyreek Hill, he lost a lot of guys on the O line, he lost some
mm-hmm.
defensive players, and like going into that Super Bowl, everybody could sit here and say it, that Eagles roster on paper was unbelievable, unbelievable on paper,
Unreal.
an unreal roster the year they had. But if you watch that game, you were with a bum foot. He had a bum foot, like you just said about Jokic. Like, how is he making those plays? Like, how is he? Because he's willing it. Like, and I think that's that Tom Brady comparison is a good one. But I would give him a little bit of patty, because I don't care what anybody says. Even if they were the number one seed all year with the best record in the league, and if you watch the Denver Nuggets this year, and I've watched them a good amount of times, especially in the playoffs, everything is run through Nikola Jokic. Everything. Everything. And I know Jamal Murray's been dynamite for them. But if
Yeah.
you look at how they initiate the offense, how the play starts, I mean, the shot Jokic hit to put them up 6, that step back where he literally, I don't think people understand in that circumstance, he caught the ball with 4.5 on the shot clock. He looked up at the shot clock, looked down at the floor, and took a step to have that recognition, knowing I got 4.5. Let me get behind the line and shoot this three and hit it. Speaks of his elite preparation and mindset and awareness of the game. I mean, guys like you said, Tom Brady, Mahomes, and just in that aspect, it's their awareness and they evaluate in their time awareness, knowing time and score, what's going on. Like, that is a very elite thing to have.
So as a basketball player in in your shoes, like how do you think Nikola Jokic developed into the player he is? Because he was the 41st pick in the 2014 NBA draft. He got drafted from a Taco Bell commercial.
I have a good friend. He actually is Serbian. He played against Nikola Jokic.
Hmm.
He played against Nikola Jokic in Serbia when they were in U14. And what people don't understand is I played overseas as well, is
Hmm.
European basketball is very tactical.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
not, it is if you watch the EuroLeague and if you watch any European basketball, it is a lot of half court sets. It
Mhm.
is a lot of diagram plays. They don't really run a lot in transition where,
Ah,
everyone watches the Olympics and they're like, "Well, why is it so different when Team USA plays?" People don't realize every time any team plays Team USA, there's two things they want to do. Slow you down, make you shoot outside shots because all Team USA wants to do, it's been the notorious thing is run, 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 run. Let's have a track meet. Let's get up and down, run, 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 run. Where in Europe, no matter what country you're in, it's get the rebound, walk it up, run a set, work the shot clock, get the best shot we possibly can. So Jokic growing up in that, obviously, his development of his body is night and day compared to when he first got drafted because he has elite level strength and conditioning coaches in the NBA and nutrition and the whole nine, just with Giannis or anybody else who's a superstar in the league. But in Europe, they teach you an assist is the best aspect of the game of basketball.
wow.
It's the only play in basketball where two people affect one play. It's the only play in basketball where somebody else creates another opportunity for somebody, but you're still involved in that opportunity of that. You're still involved in that play. It's a stat. It's literally a part of the game. And growing up in Serbia, they or any European country, they kind of teach that, like, hey, like an assist is just as good as you scoring, if not better, because you
Uh-huh.
created that opportunity. And I don't think people understand the way the game is over there. It's high. I don't care. You're a casual if you think this. If you don't think there are some elite level hoopers overseas, you need to watch more European basketball because there are. If you watch the Olympics, the past 2, 3 Olympics, go look at Argentina, go look at Spain, go look at Australia, go look at France, go look at all these countries that are developing and producing NBA players. For God's sake, you can name them right now.
Yeah.
At least three of the best players in the NBA are European.
Luka, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis.
At least three are European.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, and that's the thing too, because I was talking to somebody a few days ago about this, and I was talking to them about the European aspect of basketball compared to the NBA. And like, well, why does this guy in the European player have so much success in the NBA? I'm like, well, one, they don't get as many fouls over there in Europe. The game is a lot slower, and they
The
play
rules
what
are different too.
the
The rules
rules.
are different.
Yep, and they play so
You
much harder
realize
too.
Rudy Gobert is so successful in Europe because there's no defensive 3 seconds in Europe.
Wow.
So if I'm a 7 footer, I can sit in the lane and
Oh,
not move.
wow.
So that's why when Lucas said it's hard to score in Europe, like I remember when I first played in Europe, I didn't struggle, but because I like I said, my preparation, I just it took me a second to get a feel for the game because you got to realize there will be a 7 footer sitting in the lane always. Like in the NBA, when you blow by your initial defender, it's
Yeah.
one on one. It's a layup. It's a layup. It's
Yep.
literally a layup because he has to get out of the lane and then come back in. Where in Europe, if I blow by my initial defender, there's literally somebody sitting right there.
Yeah.
You're not getting a clear layup. You're not. And if the ball's on the rim, you're allowed to hit it off the rim if it's not fully in the cylinder. Where in the NBA, that'd be offensive
Yes.
goaltending.
Yeah, that happened in the Western Conference Finals with the Nuggets and the Lakers, and they were talking about that on the broadcast. Jeff Van Gundy was saying that I think that was where AD accidentally they say he tapped it, but he never
He
did.
tapped it. He never did. And in
Yes.
Europe, that's play on.
Yep.
And players are so accustomed to that. Where in a European game, there would be no crowd going, oh, oohing and ahhing. It would just be a normal thing because that's the rule. And honestly, I think the NBA, if there's one rule the NBA should take from FIBA, it's that rule.
Yeah.
Because what's the one thing people in the NBA like the most that's entertaining? High scoring
Scoring
affairs.
games. Yeah, high scoring games. That's why
And
everyone
if you
loves.
want more high
Yeah.
scoring affairs, you would
Right.
just add that rule because I guarantee if you add that rule, every team's points per games would go up by minimum 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Because you know how many times a game a ball rolls around the rim or hits the front of the rim or hits the side of the rim. And how many opportunities guys like Anthony Davis, Giannis, Jokic, Rudy, Cat, Bam, DeAndre Ayton, any big can just go up there and put the ball in.
Yeah.
It would help tremendously with the league. But I get it's a tough rule to add. But yeah, man, the people don't realize the difference of the European game and the NBA game.
Yeah, and I to finish this off here, this part of the show, I really wanted to say Lauri Markkanen, for example, his season, not this previous
Oh
season he
yeah,
just played, but the season before, he he said on the broadcast, actually, it was the All-Star break, and he was interviewed, and they asked him, how did your game develop into the player you were? Because you were overseas, you're from Finland, you went to Arizona, you were really good at Arizona, you were a lottery pick, you had a really tough time in Cleveland, you were good in Chicago, or you kind of had like a rough, go around a few first few years in the NBA. Then you got to the
yeah,
Jazz, and then this past summer, he said, I really developed my game even more because I got a chance to play in Europe and Finland with the guys that I was comfortable playing with, and it made me better as a player. I could work on things that I wasn't as good at, that I could, practice in the off
yeah.
season and the
He
summer, and he took that next step, and it was really, good to see and cool to hear. Like, it goes back to the European point of there's another European player right there that's flourished.
Yeah, Lori, and I actually really I tune into a lot of those FIBA qualifying games, those cups, because
Yeah,
the FIBA Cup is in 80 days and the USA's in it. That's the
yeah,
qualifier for the Olympics. And those are some great games. I feel like everyone should tune into those games because those games are really competitive. But yeah, Lori was on the Finland team for the cup, man. And I know everyone, if you followed the basketball world, he was on a tear in that cup. I mean, he was
yeah,
really on one. Like you could see the growth and development. And back to my point earlier in the show when we were talking about, like when you have that preparation, you develop and you get into the games like that, and you get that confidence, it's like no other. I mean, you could tell when the season ended when he got traded and he went home and worked, and then he had 2 months. He had 2 months to not, it's hard to really, take that leap in 2 months, but you can tell he did little things and he really took those games seriously. And you see how it paid off when he got to Utah. I mean, I'm I thought he was the most improved player in the league this year, no doubt. I mean,
I thought so
he
too.
he I don't know who won the award.
Most
The
improved
most
player
I
was
think he did. I think he did win the award.
yes, he did, because he beat out Shea and he beat out Jalen Brunson.
He did. And
Yeah,
I don't care what people say, when you go from, like you say, a lottery pick to struggling in Cleveland and going to a team like Chicago, and those are two big markets, and kind of, like hiding under the lights and not being the guy people pick, and then you go to Utah where they're expecting you to be a 20-win team and not very good, and you're going to be, who you are, and to put up those numbers and get all-star votes speaks volumes. I
yeah.
mean, that's not an easy thing to do no matter what situation you're in.
No, it's not. So I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that part. But I wanted to go back to your college career, from UNC Wilmington to University of Southern. So like I get USC and University of Southern California and South Carolina
Yeah,
mixed
yeah.
up, but it's very common. But talk about your college career experience, some highs, some lows. So break it all down.
Man. So I committed to University of North Carolina Wilmington, where at the time Kevin Keats was the head coach. He is now the current coach at North Carolina State University.
Okay.
I committed to him. It was his second year. Well, when he recruited me, it was his first year at Wilmington, and then my season going in was his second year at Wilmington. You know, people don't realize my birthday is February 11th. So I turned 18. My graduation for Fort Myers was May 2nd. I
Wow.
was on I was on campus at UNC Wilmington May 14th.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
12 days after.
12 days.
Wow.
I was on campus. I was the youngest player in the CAA.
Wow.
I was 18 years old and some odd days. I don't know the exact numbers, but I was, out of all the people in the Colonial, out of all the 12 teams, I was the youngest player in the conference.
Wow.
And
Oh my
what's
goodness.
crazy
That's
about it
whew.
is we were preparing. I get the reason I got to Wilmington so early is because, so per NCAA rules, every 4 years you're allowed something called a foreign tour, where
Okay.
for a week you get to go to a foreign country, whether it's Japan, Italy, the Bahamas, Dominican Republic, and you get to play 3 exhibition games. But 10 days before you get to go to that foreign tour, you're allowed 10 official practices. So in the preseason, you're only allowed 8 hours a week of team related activities. Where with that 10 practice rule, I mean, we were doing full college practices in the summer, getting ready for
Wow.
that. And I went from, being high school to I'm going up against 23, 24-year-old guys every day now, every single day now. Like I'm 18 years old. And it was tough at first. It wasn't that I couldn't play with them. It was, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, getting comfortable with the physicality, getting comfortable with the speed, the tempo, the pace, getting comfortable with the whole nine, how things are run, defensively, certain spots on the floor you got to be at, the whole nine. The game was different. And, it was interesting. It was a little rough at first. I had to move. I was in North Carolina. It's my first time living by myself. I just graduated high school. I'm at a Division I university, and that foreign tour was nice because, it helped me get my feet wet kind of, because I had some really good games actually, like those practices were rough. But when we got to the Bahamas, because we went to the Bahamas and we went and played in the Bahamas and Atlantis, we played against three teams, and one of the teams was okay, and the other two were actually not bad. And those are grown men as well. These are professional organizations down there. These are older men. This is what they
Yeah.
do. And I had three good games. It was nice, man. It kind of felt like, when the end of that trip came around, it kind of felt like, okay, I've gotten 10 full practices in. I've played three games. I went through a whole trip. We scouted these teams, it kind of, like I said, got my feet wet, like what it's going to be like. And, fast forward when we get back, the season started, it wasn't ideal. And I get it, as a freshman, you want to play and you feel like you should play, but it was tough. We were a good team at UNCW. We were a good team. We won the CAA that year. We won the regular season. We won the conference tournament. We ended up playing Duke in the
You guys
first
went to
round of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you guys
Yeah,
went
it
to
was
March Madness. I remember. Yes,
we
yes,
we
yes,
were we
yes.
were a good team. And it was rough because there'd be games where, there'd be games where I'd play 20 minutes and then I wouldn't play at all, and it was, it was just keeping myself locked in, but obviously, me being the player I was, player of the year, one of the best players in the state of Florida, you're not accustomed to that,
No.
you're
Yeah.
accustomed to playing because you felt like you worked for this. But what people don't realize is when you're a freshman, especially in today's age with the way the transfer portal is, like, that freshman year is a big learning year. You're going to learn a lot more than you play. And I didn't really handle some things well. It was frustrating. I was young. I was still growing up. I was 18 years old. I
Yeah.
didn't turn 19 until February. And February in college basketball is the end of the season. Because March you get into March Madness. At that point, it's like, okay, you just
Yeah.
went through your full freshman year. It is what it is. And everything was a learning experience. It had its ups and downs, man. It was tough because actually this is when I felt like I really grew up in college my freshman year. So we were on a 13-game winning streak, and the way the CAA worked, this is conference play now. So now it's just strictly conference play, colonial play, and we were on a 13-game win streak. And the way CAA play is you play Thursday and Saturday, and then you have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off, and then Wednesday you travel, and then Thursday. So we had an away and away. So when you have an away and away in the CAA, you leave Wednesday, you don't get back till Sunday night, Monday morning. And we went and played Towson, which is in Baltimore.
Maryland.
And
Yeah.
they were like third in the conference. We were like tied for first with Hofstra. And I knew I wasn't going to play that game. I just had a gut feeling, and I don't want to sit here and say I'm glad I didn't, but we were on a 14-game win streak, and when I tell you we got whooped, we got ran, like we got blasted. Like it was a bad game. Like we only shot like 32% from the floor as a team. They shot like 60. We got out rebounded by 20. It was just one of those games where like our starters weren't playing well. Some of the guys he brought off the bench, and in the back of my mind, like, I'm not going to sit here and say I was glad that happened to us, but I was kind of like, damn, like he's got to make some changes now. Like we just got blasted. And that was kind of a
Yeah.
big game, even though we were on a 14-game win streak. That was a big game because they were only 2.5 games behind us,
Hmm.
and so we ended up losing that game. And how if you're a college athlete getting cursed out in the locker room, whatever, and that next game we played Saturday, so it's like Thursday. It's like Thursday night now. The game's over. We're about to leave the arena. Our next game is Delaware at Delaware on Saturday. Now Delaware's campus is only an hour and a half away from Baltimore.
Not far at all. Yeah.
So we just got in the bus and we just drove to Delaware and we got to our hotel because it was Friday. At this point, it's Friday. You're gonna have your pre-practice and then the next day you have your shoot on the games at 6 o'clock. Well, we get to the hotel. We get to the hotel that night. It's now Friday morning. It is probably 2 o'clock in the morning, and we on a charter bus and we get to the Hilton in Delaware in Dover. That's what the campus was, and one of the managers goes, "Hey, coach wants you to put your bags down and come meet us in the convention center," which is like in those Hiltons. They have those big rooms, like those big
Yeah.
like ballrooms, and we're like, "Come meet you in the convention room." It's 2:30 in the morning. So we
Wow.
go down there, we meet him. He had film set up, and we watched the entire Towson game from tip to the end, the entire game. And we didn't get out of that film room till about 4:15, 4:30.
Wow.
And that's probably against NCAA regulations, but I mean at this point, but but we did that, and the next day we had a scheduled practice at Delaware's practice facility at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We go there, and I'm killing. I'm having a hell. Like I'm on the scout team because I didn't play. I'm like whatever. I wanted to be on the scout team because you get more reps that way.
Yeah.
You get to go up and down more. It's just better for you if you're not playing. And I'm killing them. I'm killing them. And Keats, who the head coach at the time, is just giving the first stringers. He's just yelling at them, and the assistants are giving it to him. And I'm not really saying much. I'm just kind of killing because at this point, like these are my teammates, and I'm like, hey, listen, like I'm just trying to get reps in. Like there's nothing I could do. And I didn't really think I was gonna play that game. And Delaware comes around, and we tip off, and we kind of get off to a slow start. We're down like 4 or 5 with like 16 minutes to go in the first half. The game just started. And he looks down at the end of the bench, and I'm kind of sitting there like I'm ready to go, but I'm not ready to go. Like I'm kind of like I'm kind of like Nikola Jovic of the Heat right now. Like I'm just sitting there like all right, like whatever, like shit's gonna happen. And I'm sitting there, and I'll never forget I was drinking because they had blue Gatorade in these little Gatorade cups. And I'm drinking it. I'm taking a sip, like whatever. And I put the cup and I have my full warm up on. I have the full everything on, and I put my cup down, and all you hear is you hear a scream, Mark, Mark, and I like look, and one of the assistants, his name is Casey Stanley, is this white guy. He stands up and goes, "Go get Chris." Chris is like one of our best small forwards. I'm like, all right, bet. So I get up, I get in the game, and whatever. We're down like 4 at this point, and I check in because the ball was baseline out of bounds, and we ran this thing. It's called X3. It was a
Okay.
play for me. I'm like, well, it was originally for Chris, but I'm supposed to get the first look, and I go and set an up screen. And I curl after I set the up screen. I'm now getting a pin down to come up to the left wing, and I get a
Okay.
pin down, and he goes under my screen. I catch, I let it go, bang, it goes in. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling good. Next possession, we get a steal. I come down. We then run another baseline out of bounds play because the ball went off his foot. It's a stack. It's called X5. And now I'm stacked like this. I'm the last guy in the stack. And all I have to do is once everyone splits, I just slip down the middle. I'm supposed to get a layup. I slip, get right down the middle. I get an and one. I hit the free throw. I got 6 quick points. I'm like, all right, I'm feeling myself. Next time down, I get a rebound. I come down. He sets me a ball screen. He goes under the ball screen. I pull up, bang. They call a timeout. I got a quick 9. I'm feeling myself. Moral of the story, we end up winning that game by 18. I had one of my best college games. I had one of my best Division One games. I had 18, 5, 5, and like 3 steals, and versus Delaware. And I was feeling myself, and
I
it
have
was
it
a
on
good
here.
momentum. It
Yeah,
was
I
a
have it
good
on here.
momentum booster.
I
Yeah.
wrote it down. I have it on here. Like January
I had a
9th,
big
2016.
versus
Yeah.
Delaware, a big
Yep.
game. And I was feeling myself, and like it helped me gain my confidence, but then I didn't play for the rest of the year after that game. I didn't play for the rest of the year. I caught 14 DNPs. And
Jeez.
it's just what kids don't understand is, it's just being ready in that moment. You just don't know. You just don't know when things are going to happen. And that year was a lot of growing pains, a lot of growing pains, a lot of ebbs and flows. Like I said, I had that big game. middle of conference play. We just ended our 14-game win streak. We go to Delaware, who was, one of the more hostile environments in the CAA. I have a big game. And, just to not play the rest of that year, like, damn, like, I kind of did everything I could to get in that game. All you can really do is, like I said, back to my mindset, is just keep that mindset and keep working. That's all I did. Even though I knew, I was thinking I was going to get more playing time because of that. And, obviously I didn't play a single game for the rest of the year after that. And it wasn't, I was healthy. I was good to go. And, but I always stayed ready, man. I always stayed ready. And, when the season came to an end, we kind of just had a conversation. He wanted me to stay, but he didn't want me to stay. There were some things, there were some conversations we had that, we butted heads, and it wasn't really even about playing time. It was more so just like pure respect, like just being upfront and being honest about things. And I'm not telling you to always tell me how things are going to be, but if something's going to happen, hey, let me know,
Yeah,
like I'd
for
rather you
sure.
let me know, or just a pure respect thing. And, I'm not going to say what some things were said in that exit meeting, but, some things were said, and it was just best. We kind of mutually just thought it was best if I transferred, and it
Yeah,
was kind of late because he gave my release late, and I had some Division I schools, but at that point, they were kind of filling roster spots. When you get your release in July, it's like, dude,
that's
like a lot of
late.
schools are filled. It's late. It's
Yeah.
really, our school starts in August, and I was like, okay, and USC Aiken calls me. USC Aiken is about 4 hours away from Wilmington.
Okay.
I was in my apartment at Wilmington in July still. My lease was up August like 3rd. And I was with a couple of my buddies, and the assistant calls me and he goes, "Hey, can you get down here to USC Aiken?" I was like, "Man, I don't know if I'm gonna make the drive to Aiken 4 hours. Like, I don't know." Like, I was kind of on the verge of just like trying to see if I could walk on at FGCU, like
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Because at this point I was like, damn. And he goes, I'm gonna. He goes, no. He goes, I'm gonna. He goes, no. I'm gonna have my assistant come pick you up. I was like, what?
What?
I was like, you're gonna have your assistant coach come pick me up for. You're gonna have your assistant coach drive 8.5 hours in one day. He goes, yeah, it's fine. And I'm like, okay, that's hell on him. So he says he'll pick you up at 8 o'clock. I was like, he'll pick me up at 8 o'clock. I was like, all right, sure as shit. Next day, I had my alarm set for 7:30. I got up, took a shower, had a coffee, and I look outside my apartment window because the way my apartment was, I was on the second floor and I was facing the parking lot. And I just see his name is Jacob Gollin. He played at Mercer, but he was an assistant there. And I just see him in his USC Aiken polo sitting there, like standing straight up, like perked up, like excited. And I was just like, damn, this guy must really like me. And I get in the car, and honestly, man, he's not there anymore, but that was one of the coolest car rides I've ever been a part of, man. Like we talked for the whole 4 hours on the way down. We were just chopping it up about basketball because we kind of related. We played the same position. We kind of had the same path. Same
Mhm.
thing kind of happened to us. And
Wow.
it was kind of refreshing, to have a conversation like that with somebody after that whole year of what just happened. Like it was like, damn, like it was like a sigh of relief. We get to Aiken, and I don't know if you've ever been to Aiken, South Carolina, but
No, I've been to South Carolina, but I haven't been to Aiken. No.
Aiken is about 20 miles north of Augusta, Georgia. It's right on the
Oh,
border of
okay.
South Carolina. It's like right there. And when I tell you there's a Walmart, a Zaxby's, and a McDonald's, and a Quality Inn and Bojangles, and that's about it. That's about it. And that's about it. And I get there, and you can look it up. It's called the Convention Center. It's actually one of the best facilities in Division II in USC Aiken. Imagine, it's awesome. It seats 4,000 people. It's this big arena. You can look it up after this. It's awesome. Like I really
Wow.
give kudos to them the fact that they have that. Like the
Yeah.
campus, the campus is the size of Fort Myers High School, but
Wow.
literally, like the college campus is the size of Fort Myers High School,
That's
and
crazy.
but the arena across the street is beautiful, state of the art. It's this gigantic arena. It's called the Convention Center. And I was like, all right, I'll come here and play here. And I committed and I went there. And my sophomore year, I was third team all conference. They're in a conference called the Peach Belt Conference, which is a lot of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Flagler was the only Florida school.
Okay.
And we were preseason. There's 14 teams in that league. We were preseason picked to be 11th out of
Hmm.
14 teams. We ended up finishing third.
Wow.
I was third team all conference, and we ended up losing in the conference semifinal to a team, Columbus State. They were the number 2 overall team. And, it was just refreshing to have a year where he put so much trust and faith into me. He's like, listen, like, I know you had a rough year. We know what you can do. Just go out there. And the system fit me, man. Like his name, he's still there to this day. His name is Mark Vanderslice. He's the head coach there. And, I liked him, man. He was a good guy, but I didn't want to say it to him in the beginning, but I didn't see myself staying at Aiken for my whole career,
Yeah.
and I don't want to sit here and, like I didn't say that from Jump Street, but I knew towards the end, I was like, listen, this was a great year. I had a great time playing here, but I just didn't personally off the court. Like my living situation was great. The apartments were great. The people I was with were great. Everyone in the town, like I have a lot of love for Aiken, South Carolina, because
Yeah.
they took me in with open arms and they treat everyone the right way. But it's a business, and at the end of the day, like if I felt like it was better for me to explore my options after the year I just kind of had, I was like, let me do it. And per NCAA rules, and Mark Vanderslice was not happy about that decision. But per NCAA rules, now that I was transferring for a second time, I had to sit out.
Oh, I saw that. I
And
saw that. Your 2016, 2017 season,
I had to
correct?
sit out. I had to sit
Yes.
out, yeah.
Yeah.
And after that Aiken year, so I have 2 years of eligibility after that, but I had to sit out. So there was a Division II school, Nova Southeastern, where I ended up going. I actually went and played in an open gym like a week before like school kind of started again. And I and the way Nova Southeastern works is, so Jim Crutchfield, who I actually ended up playing for after this redshirt year, I'll get to that, is we have this notorious system where you press and it's up and down, and in the open gyms, you have to press. Like it's intense. Like you are pressing
Wow.
the entire. It's crazy. It's
Oh my
like you are
gosh.
you are literally pressing the entire open gym. Made basket press, defensively on a miss press. Like you're playing to 125 twos and threes. You get a media 25 points. It's a lot. It's tiring, and I was
Wow.
already in really good shape, and that was actually his first year. So he was trying to get a good recruiting class there because Nova was bottom of the league, and he was bringing that system. And when I tell you that was one of the best open gyms I ever had in my entire basketball career, I was torching them. I
Wow.
out of that 125, I probably scored 50. I was on one. Like I was
Jeez.
like I open. You can ask people like David Dennis. You can message them, like you could be like, oh yeah, he was on one that day. And he offered to pay. Moral of the story, he offered to pay for my redshirt year and my last 2 years of eligibility. But then a day later, Florida Gulf Coast called,
Yeah.
and they offered the same thing.
Mm.
And I was like, honestly, the way it worked out is I should have just took the redshirt year at Nova, but out of being spiteful and kind of prideful, I wanted to prove myself I can play Division I again. So I took the Florida Gulf Coast offer. I didn't play there. I only redshirted there. This was Joe Dooley's last season at Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah. Joe Dooley. It's,
And
yeah, remember him. Yeah.
even though, out of all the years I had, because we'll get to the last 2 I had at Nova Southeastern, which were the 2 best years of my basketball career off and on the court. I mean, those teams were just, we were
Yeah.
unbelievable, and I was playing unbelievable. But backtrack to that redshirt year, why I say that FGCU year was the most interesting was because going into that season, I obviously knew I wasn't playing. I was redshirting. I had to
Mm.
sit out the whole season. I was going to be on the scout team, so I knew again it was a year of growth, development. I'm not going to play. I'm here to learn. I'm here to work my way up. This is why I came here. We had at the time Christian Terrell, Brandon Goodwin, Zach Johnson. In my
Yep.
opinion, 3 studs. Like all seniors. Ricky Doyle transferred into from
Yep.
Michigan. He coming back to Florida Gulf Coast. He's going to start center. We go through the whole preseason. We're picked to be second or first in the league with Lipscomb and the ASUN. I'm like, dude, we got to. I'm looking at our team like, dude, we got a really good team. Like, Troy Baxter was redshirting with me, a transfer from UNLV, myself. Like, man, we had a nice little team. And when I tell you that was just the most dysfunctional locker room I've ever been a part of,
Wow.
we just, it wasn't even just we. It was just guys. I'm not even gonna single guys out. Like everyone was
Yeah.
just disconnected. It was just bad. It was a bad nucleus. Like I knew it was bad so there was a tournament that FGCU hosts. They don't do it anymore, but it was called the Hilton Garden Inn Classic, where it was like a 3-day classic where FGCU has teams, like a team will come in and you'll play them too, and then they'll play each other. It's like a 3-day event, like one of those little like jamborees,
Yeah.
It's part of your regular season schedule. And we beat Illinois State, and we were like 2-0 going into it. And the teams who we had coming to it were Denver University, Navy, St. Francis Brooklyn, and us. And I'm like, oh man, I mean, I'm not playing, but we should be 4-0 going out. We're gonna blow these teams out. And we played Denver University, who was like 2-5 coming into the game. Chauncey Billups' brother was actually the head coach of Denver.
Oh wow!
And it was his first year there, and but they weren't very good. Like I don't care. I don't care how the game went. They weren't good, and it was a close game. Like they had us down 5 with like 4 minutes to go, and you could just see the dysfunction starting to brew. The inner fighting, coach breaking clipboard, like the whole nine. Like I can go into detail. And we ended up actually pulling that game out, and I'm like, okay, maybe that was just a bad night. Maybe that was just one of those games. We ended up winning by like 7. I'm like, all right, maybe that was just a bad game, whatever. We just avoided a bad loss. Now the next day, we're playing Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't know if you're familiar with how the military schools work, like West Point Army, West Point Navy, Air Force, like how they work with athletics.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get a pass if you're an athlete there.
No, you don't.
The same physical conditioning workouts you have to do when you're enlisted, whether it's West Point, Navy, Air Force, you have to follow those regimens on the road or whatever it may be. Your schedule doesn't change. Like when you're on a road game. So Navy played at 5:00 the day before versus St. Francis Brooklyn. They ended up beating them by like 10, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had shoot around the next day at the arena at like 10:30 in the morning, 10:30. I'm walking to the arena. Like I parked my car, I'm walking to the arena. You've been to FGCU, here's the arena. There's a soccer field right there.
Yep.
I see Navy's bus parked at the soccer field, but I knew Navy doesn't have their shoot around till 12:00. They purposely did that because the game we had wasn't until 7:00 at night. So I kind of walk over to the soccer field. I'm like, I'm here 30 minutes early, whatever. It's just shoot around. They're doing a full-on conditioning workout, log runs, sled pushes, weighted vest crawls. Like they're doing a whole workout. And I'm like, bro, we play these guys in like 6 hours. Like,
oh my gosh,
what's going on? And we're like, everyone kind of saw. I'm like, yo, did anyone just see like Navy's doing their work, like a workout outside? Like, anyone just see that? And we go through our shoot around, and I mean, I just kind of felt like we were gonna dismantle them. When I tell you they came out in the first half and punched us in the mouth, I'm sitting there like their biggest player is 6'6". Their biggest player was 6'6".
Talking about undersized.
Like, Navy. I'm sitting there like this, like watching this, and the game gets close, and this is when I knew we were in trouble. We tied. It was like a 1-point game with like 5 minutes to go. The biggest kid on the court, he's 6'6". He looks like Captain America, this kid. High buzz cut, low fade, gel back, like no tattoos, both wrists taped, high socks. Like you're just like, what the hell is this kid? He catches the ball on the left wing.
Yep.
He takes one dribble, but you can look this up on YouTube. Just type in Navy versus FGCU ESPN top 10 dunk. It's still up there. He takes one dribble with his right hand going baseline. Ricky Doyle rotates over help side. This kid takes one dribble, cocks it back with his right hand. Ooh, like that's the chest with Ricky. Like punches it and one, count the basket. I just sat there and was like, these dudes are a different breed. Now I know they aren't a very good basketball team, but these dudes, and the story gets better. That dunk happens. Again, we ended up squeaking by Navy, beating them by like 8 or 10. The game is over. I'm going to get my post-game meal that they have in the locker room for us. I'm picking up like this pasta.
Yeah.
I'm walking out of the players' tunnel to go say what's up to my dad, and I look in the arena, Navy is running suicides with weighted vests on after the game. After the game, they're running suicides with weighted
What?
vests on. And I'm just like, I go up to their assistant coach and I'm like, did somebody yell at y'all in the locker room? Like, what's going on? And he goes, no, like they have to do this. This is their this is I say, well, what are your practices like? He goes, 45 minutes of free throws. He says, we don't practice. He says, we shoot free throws for 45 minutes. I'm like, really? He
Wow.
goes, yep. He goes, because we physically can't because they have to do this.
Wow.
And, I just looked at that. I was like, man, like and I was like, it's at that point, I was like, we can't take some of the things we have for granted when guys have to go through stuff like that, man.
Yeah.
Like, like we're over here complaining about this and this, but man, these guys have to go through fucking 4 workouts a day and then play a game. And I'm like, dude, like we gotta just be more grateful and thankful for what we have, because like I said, our nucleus, man, just I'm not gonna name individual guys, but we just
Yeah.
had some guys who just didn't appreciate what we had, and all the things we were getting. Because at that time, dude, like people still thought it was Dunk City, and
Yeah.
like
It's over.
it's like it's over. Like you got to get over it. It's a new era. Like teams
Right.
don't care about that. And
No.
that whole year ended, and then I'll fast forward to the end of the season. You know, we played Lipscomb again, and I don't know if you're familiar with this name. There's a kid named Garrison Matthews.
Yes, yes, yes.
He
He's in the NBA now. He was
Yeah,
on
yeah,
he's
he
on
was
the
the
Rockets.
Rockets. He's with the
Yeah, he's
Rockets. He was with the
Wizards,
Wizards,
Rockets.
and then the
Yeah.
Rockets was when he really had his big stint.
Yeah.
And he had his stint, and I'll never forget. Garrison just lit us up. Like we played them 3 times. I think in those 3 games, he averaged like 38 a game versus us.
Jeez.
And this was the game when I knew we were just checked out. We're in the A-Sun Championship, and we're hosting. The way the A-Sun works is the higher seed hosts.
Yeah.
We're in the A-Sun Championship at FGCU playing Lipscomb. We scouted all week. We knew everything they were going to do. We knew everything they were going to do. Again, I wasn't playing. I just could only scout team, and I could only do so much. When it came game time, you just got to sit back. And Garrison gave us the smoothest 45 I've ever seen, and we lost the A-Sun Championship on the home floor. And then
Wow.
once we lost that game, we were because when you lose the conference championship, obviously the winner of the conference goes to the NCAA tournament, and the second seed goes to the NIT. And our draw was Oklahoma State at Oklahoma State in the first round of the NIT. And nobody thought we could win that game on our team, which I thought was sad. But it was just like at this point, like you can't motivate these guys, and they ended up going to Oklahoma State and losing by like 22. And then 2 days later, Joe Dooley accepts a job to East Carolina. Like it was all just brewing. Like the whole thing was
Yeah.
just brewing up. Like guys didn't care. The head coach knew he was getting a bigger job. Like
Yep.
it was just all trickling down effect. And after a year like that, like it was like damn, like it kind of felt like I was back at square one, like I was at Wilmington, like even though I redshirted and didn't play a single minute this year and didn't lose any eligibility, I was like, damn, like I kind of wanted to stay here, but like everyone's leaving and like what's going on? And I then have to get my release again for a third straight year. And I did not envision myself transferring this many times, nor did I
Right.
want
Yeah,
to.
for sure. I didn't think you
And
would either.
then at this point I'm thinking to myself, I'm talking with my dad, I'm like, who's gonna want a kid that has transferred 3 times in 3 years? It just looks bad. It's like
Yeah.
when somebody gets waived 3 times, it's like, who's gonna want to pick that guy up? And luckily for me, there was only one person I thought of. His name is Jordan Fee. He was the associate head coach at Nova Southeastern. He's now the head coach at Gann University. He just accepted the job this year. I called him. I said, look, I got my release again. I'm not really pursuing any other schools. I said, I'd be really grateful if you'd let me just come, just give me another chance if you want to look at me. And I said, if you don't, because I kind of gave him cold feet last year after he offered to pay for my redshirt year. I'm like, I still got 2 years of eligibility. I understand if you don't want to. I'm just calling to see if there's anything for me. And he goes, all right. He goes, hold on. Because he really liked me. Even at a high school transfer, he always liked me. He goes, all right, hold on. Probably 2 minutes later, I hung up the phone. 2 minutes later, Jordan Fee calls me back. He says, can you get over to Fort Lauderdale tomorrow at 10 o'clock? I said, yeah, that's no problem. It's right across the island. I can get there.
Jeez, wow. But still, yeah, so quick.
I was like, all right, call him. I go play in an open gym. He offers me again. I signed that day. I was like, I'm here. I want to be here. I want to be here. I knew. I liked how they thought. Like I said, after the year we just had, everyone felt connected. You know, that was Crutch. So that year was, like I said, last year was Crutchfield's first year, and that was kind of a rebuilding year. But this year was like his guys he's bringing in. He knows who he has, like a whole new roster. He's like, listen, man, we're gonna be really good with you. We're gonna be really, really good. And I was like, I like this. Everyone got along, and I was like, all right, yeah, I'm with this, regardless of how this year's gonna go, how we play. I'm with this. And we ended up the way the SEC works. There's 11 teams, and only 8 make the conference tournament. We were preseason picked 5th in the league. We ended up winning the league, going 31-3, and winning the region. And I was the
Wow.
All-American that year, first team.
Wow.
I had a year. My junior year, I averaged like 22, 8-5.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe those are a little off, but it was close to that. My junior year at
It's
Nova Southeastern.
I got it right here. I got for both seasons for your junior and senior season, you averaged 20.61 points per game and 21.97.
Yeah, and it was my numbers were just ridiculous because of how we played, and I was just but as a team though, we were just we were so locked in, man. We were pummeling. I mean, we went 31-3, winning the region. We were picked 5th in the conference. I mean, and it was just it was a breath of fresh air because I felt like I was somewhere I was wanted and
Wow.
somewhere not. And it just it was like it was nice, like whether it was the coaches, the players, the people at the school, man, like the appreciation and just having that appreciation, like, hey, man, we love you and we want you here. And we're so thankful you're here was just so refreshing after everything that just went on for those 3 years and the way it played out. And
Like the
man,
home
if I
like
could go,
that home sense, that feel of I feel really good
yeah,
about this, even though,
like
it's
this is
two
awesome
yeah, it's 2 hours
on and
away,
on,
but I feel good.
on and
Yeah.
off the court, like regardless of living in Fort Lauderdale, man, like on and off the court, man, like everything was just awesome. Like my whole experience was just so cool there. And like I'm forever grateful for being able to play my last, like I say to this day, if I could go back,
Yeah.
I would just go to Nova Southeastern for all 4 years. I would
Wow.
have done it. I would
Wow.
have done it. I would have done it.
Damn.
Like I really would have done it because, my relationship I had with Jordan Fee, who was the associate head coach at the time, man, was unlike any other relationship I ever had with any coach, man. I could call him and we didn't even have to talk about basketball, man. We could just talk
Wow.
about life. We could just go get a
Damn.
sandwich. We could just go get like we could just hang out. Like it was awesome. Like, and having that relationship, it gave me so much confidence on the floor because I knew whether I messed up or did something good, like there was that leeway. There was that it's okay. Like we trust what you're doing. We
Yeah.
know how you think. And if you play the game, how that makes you feel and what kind of confidence that gives you when you have that, like, that trust, that relationship, like where you can just feel off each other and feed off each other and like, hey, okay, I'll fix it. Or like he gives you a look and you give him a look, like, and
Yep.
you're both on the same page. And it was just so refreshing, man. And I was fortunate enough those last 2 years. I was a back-to-back All-American, the only player in school history to do it. I was the only player to get nominated for the Reese's All-Star Game in Division II. Only 8 people per team get picked for that.
Yeah.
I broke numerous single-season records there, man, and it was just a shame that my senior year, was the spring of COVID, and
Yes. Yes.
we were
Yeah.
on the way to the NCAA tournament, and everything obviously you already know got shut down, and
Yeah.
it was rough, man. But my college experience, man, is it was humbling, but it was a blessing, man, because I know at the end of the day, I'm not supposed to be able to predict what's going to happen. Nobody
No,
is.
nobody's supposed to predict what's supposed to
You're
happen. Like,
supposed to you're supposed to just, kind of go with the ebbs and flows of things, man. That's what happened. And, you know, I don't regret anything that happened during my duration in college. I don't, because I feel like whatever happened for the best. Me living Wilmington, me going to Aiken for 1 year, me redshirting at FGCU, and me finishing those last 2 years at Nova Southeastern. It was just, it was kind of meant to be, I guess, because you just don't know how things are going to play out, man. But I'm forever grateful for the people I met on that journey, man. And it's crazy to think about because those were 5 long years, 5 long years. I mean,
yeah.
after everything I did and just the whole nine, it just what sucks about it, man, is just it's just you just can't you, you just couldn't make it up. You just
Yeah.
couldn't make up anything that was going on. I mean, the way we were playing, the way I was playing, man, I was so locked in and so mentally just appreciative of everything going on around me that, it didn't matter if I had 40 or 4, I just wanted to play basketball and have fun.
Yeah. So this one here is a two-part question for you. What was your least favorite college basketball moment? And what was your most favorite college basketball moment?
Well, I got 2 for the last one, but for my least favorite moment in college. Wow, my least favorite moment in college, because it sucks because all right. So my least favorite moment was we were playing in the Elite Eight my junior year at Nova Southeastern,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to look at it as like a game, like or like a workout or something, because all those workouts can be ups and downs. Those things happen in there, but we were playing in the Elite Eight, and we were 31-3. Nova's first time winning the region, first Elite Eight appearance. Whole big year, big massive turnaround. We get to the Elite Eight and we play a team called St. Anselm, and we matched up pretty well with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a game, but the only problem, I had 31-13 that game, but the only problem is I was literally the only person healthy for that game. Our starting point guard David Dennis had full body cramps the whole night before and they're going into the game. Our best blue collar defender, Dwayne Gibson, had a torn groin and hernia going into the game. He tried to play through it. If you're an athlete and you play basketball and you have a groin injury, you know how hard that is to play.
LeBron
One of our
recently.
Yeah, one of our better two guards and outside shooters, Eddie Puisis, his patella tendon and LCL were completely messed up.
Oof.
Nick was banged. Our whole team was pretty much banged up, and it kind of felt like I was carrying the load the whole game. Where, like I said, I didn't feel like that the whole year, and I was doing everything. Like again, I had 31-13 that game, and
Ooh.
we ended up losing by 6 in the Elite Eight. And I sat there in that locker room, and and again, St. Anselm that game though they couldn't miss. Like the first half, they hit 17 threes. They couldn't miss. It was out of all my college games, it was truly unbelievable to play against because you're just sitting there like that's in, that's in, that's in. Like they just couldn't miss. But then the next game they play Northwest Missouri State, who was the number 1 overall seed,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended up winning the national championship that year. And St. Anselm couldn't throw it in the ocean. They couldn't
Wow.
hit anything. They went 3 of 33 from 3 the next game. And I
Sheesh.
just sat there. I just sat there in the back of my mind for that whole month. And I don't want to reminisce on much because I'm a firm believer when the season ends, I don't do anything for 2 weeks. I go enjoy myself. I give myself that mental clarity, but it was really tough. And I'd sit there with my friends. I was like, man, like, what if, we were actually fully healthy? Like, like, what if? Because I was a firm believer if we were fully healthy, we blow out both those teams. I don't care. Anyone can say whatever they want. I know. I know we would have handled both those teams and won a national championship. And, kudos to Nova. I don't know if you peeped. They went 36-0 this year and won the Division II national championship.
Yeah.
And they got
My
one this year.
my cousin
But
goes to
that,
my cousin goes to Nova.
yeah. And, I was just a firm believer that year. Like I wish we could go back in that moment and just have be healthier. Because I know health
Mm-hmm.
is a part of the game and I understand it, but man, I was just like I just wish we were healthy for that game. Now, my best moment, I got 2 because they're just hard to think of.
Yeah.
So my senior year, we played. It was 3 weeks left in the regular season, and we were
Mm-hmm.
rolling. We were tied for first in the conference with Florida Southern, who was always a dominant Division II powerhouse. And
Yeah.
we're playing a school, Palm Beach Atlantic, conference play.
Mm-hmm.
I went. I broke. Not only did I break the single game scoring record that game, I had 45. The record there at Nova, I had 45. I went 21 of 25 from the field.
Wow.
I only missed 4 shots the whole game.
That's insane.
21. I shot 82% from the field and had 45.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't like after the game I saw the box score, I was like, whoa. And I had 9 rebounds and 7 assists. And I was like, whoa, like I didn't realize how big it was till like I got on my phone after the game because like I was like, all right, I had a 45-point game, like whatever. Like, no, like people were like, dude, you had the best plus minus in Division II history. Like you literally had the most efficient game any player in Division II has ever had. And I was like, what? My phone was just, at least Twitter. My Twitter. I couldn't go on Twitter for 4 hours after the game. Like it was insane. Like it was truly one of the craziest experiences, and just that game. It was just one of those games where like you just feel like like the rim is the size of the ocean. Like
Yeah.
everything was going in, and a second moment definitely, when as a team, because I don't want to be more self-centered because I'm all about team-oriented stuff, was when we won the region my junior year at
Mm-hmm.
Nova. That celebration of everyone rushing the court and, for the first time in school. Not only was that the first time in Nova's history being in the NCAA tournament and hosting it, but we won it. So it
Wow.
was just like, not only was this school the bottom of the totem pole in the league for all these years and bad, but the first year we get to the NCAA tournament, we're hosting it. Not only do we host it, we win it. We win our region on our home floor. In a team, the team we beat in the regional final, we already played 3 times that year. We swept them 4-0. So it was like icing on the cake. It was just like, we beat this team 4 times in a row. We're winning it on our home floor. Everyone just celebrating, like the confetti coming down. Like it was just a real surreal moment, man. And like I said, after everything that went on that year, and that was my first year at Nova, like that was just such a great feeling. Like, damn, like, like we did something, but I was a huge contributor to it. And it was just nothing like it.
After all the success at Nova, they better retire that damn jersey of yours.
Oh man, I'd hope so, man. I'd be at the ceremony in a heartbeat if they ever chose to do that.
you,
Don't
you
worry,
better
I'd
you
love
be,
going there.
you better call that associate head coach up on the phone and say, "Hey, that jersey retirement, is it coming?"
I think I gotta be at least 2 more years removed from Nova, but when the time comes, I'm definitely gonna bring that up to them, no doubt. Yeah.
Right. So, a point you kind of like talked about with like you played in Division 1, you played in Division 2. For people at home, because everyone just sees the TV, watching the games, March Madness and Division 1 college basketball, and they don't really get to see a lot of D2. Can you just explain the difference between Division 1 and Division 2 and how hard it actually is for kids at home? Because a lot of them have no clue. They just see the glitz and the glamour and March Madness, and they see the da na 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 na. They don't know what really goes into it when they see these small school like the 16 seeds upsetting the 1 seed. Just talk about the difference between Division 1 and Division 2.
Well, put it to you this way: there is no difference. Like there
Wow.
is no difference. Like let me tell you something. Especially nowadays, I want you to go check the transfer portal.
Yeah.
The Division II Player of the Year is going to Georgia next year.
Wow.
He went to Nova Southeastern, RJ Sunahara. He's literally going from Nova Southeastern to UGA, full
Wow.
scholarship.
Damn.
Their starting small forward is going to Memphis.
With Penny.
The team with Penny Hardaway in the American. Like guys are transferring now from Division II to high majors. So if that doesn't speak volumes of the competition that's at the Division II level, then you really must not watch it.
Yeah.
Literally, if you go look at the transfer portal, there was a kid on Creighton last year from Northwest Missouri State. He went from Northwest Missouri State to Creighton.
And they made the Final Four.
They were in the Elite Eight. Elite Eight.
Elite Eight, Elite Eight. Yeah, because they got bounced
They were
by
in the
San
Elite
Diego
Eight.
State, right? Yeah.
And he literally was in a Division II school and he was starting every game for an Elite Eight team in Division I, a Big East school. Like,
Wow.
there's no drop off. Like, just because you're not at a SEC, Big 12, ACC school doesn't mean you can't play.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how hard it is to play at that level, just to even get to that level?
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would do it. Like,
Yeah.
it's not easy because do you know how many kids have the same aspiration as goals as you do? There's a million kids trying to do what I did, what he did, what he did. Like, there's only 15 guys on each roster. There's
Yep.
only 10 teams a league. Do the math. We're
Yep.
talking a slim percentage of guys who can really be there.
And the
But when
guys
it
that
comes to
and the guys
yeah,
that even stay in the NBA or stay in college, they fall out or something happens. I mean, so many guys have the talent, but they don't ever pan out. I mean, there's plenty of guys
it's
in
it's
the
tough,
NBA.
man. Like it's tough Like, yeah, you know, some of it has to deal with fit and style of play, and if it goes well, but you know, majority of the time, it's if are you really cut from this cloth? Like,
Yeah.
are you built for this? You know, it's not easy. Like, no matter what sport it is, basketball, football, baseball, like what Meek Mill said, there's levels to this. Like,
Yeah.
there's really levels to this. Like, you got to understand, like you got to work your butt off if you want to stay at that level or go higher, man. And like you said, it's there is no difference because I've played at both levels. And let me tell you something, there are some dogs. Those teams who are top 15 in the country at Division 2, why do you think those Division 1 schools don't play them in exhibitions?
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
There's a reason when they play these exhibitions in the beginning of the year, how come when the preseason top 25 rankings come out, not one top 25 Division 2 team gets an exhibition game versus Division 1 school? Why is that?
Wow.
Does anyone ever talk about that?
Nope.
You want to know
Never.
why there isn't? There isn't one because they get beaten by
They
them.
they get busted up. Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Going into my senior year at Nova, Jordan Fee, we were this close to playing Stetson, this close.
And they're Division
And when
One.
they're in the A Sun, same league as FGCU.
FGCU, yeah, because Jacob DeGrom went there for yeah.
People they wouldn't admit this, and I'll admit it. I don't care. We would
Mhm.
have blasted them by 25.
Wow.
We would have blasted Stetson,
Yeah.
blasted. And they watched film. The assistant called him back and said, "We're not playing you guys."
Hmm.
So if the assistant, because the way it works is when you play games, you sign contracts.
Mm.
Smaller schools get paid to come play you. Like they
Yeah.
would literally. You think Stetson wants to pay us to come whoop you?
Hmm.
You see what
No.
I'm saying?
Well,
So
I'm glad you mentioned that because last year when the gate or the pre not this past season that just passed for the Gators, but last season when Dan Mullen was there before Napier got the job, they played what is the school? They got busted up by, it was like 63 to something. Not Fordham. It's I forget the name of the school, but they got absolutely torched.
yeah, and they paid them and they paid them to
Yep.
come play them.
Yep.
And not
They
only
got
did you get torched
absolutely
by a little
torched.
school, you just gave that school $500,000 to $1
Yep.
million to come do that to you.
Samford. That's the name of the team. Yes.
Stanford, who is a
Whooped.
small SoCon school, a AA football team, whooped you,
Yeah.
and you paid them to come do that.
Yeah. Man.
So it's a risk, but yeah, I mean, you be the judge when the schedules come out. I want you to go look at how many top 20, like top 25, 25 to 1. How many have an exhibition versus Division 1 team? I guarantee you it's zero.
You don't
Guarantee
see
it.
you don't see any usually ever.
No, they play the lowest of the low Division 2 schools. And even then, sometimes those schools lose. It's crazy
Damn.
how it works, man. There is no drop off. It's the game the game has talent all over. It's just a matter of where you play and who finds you. You know, you can't control that. Like, you know,
Yeah.
some kids, you know, they have to go to junior college right out of school, or they're not as fortunate to go Division 1, but it's like you gotta roll with what you got sometimes, man. And you know, like it's all these scholarships are 1 year deals. So even if you think you're safe, you're not safe because at the end of the
No.
year, he has to renew your scholarship, and he can sit there and be like, I'm not renewing it. So
What one player that I wanted to mention before we do wrap up the show, before we head to the 5 questions to end it, but Austin Reeves, that's a name that's been floating around the
mhm.
NBA. He just finished his second year. He had a great playoff run with the Lakers this past season, but just from the beginning of time with his time with the Lakers, because he was undrafted, time at Oklahoma, time at Wichita State, and so many guys are saying like, "Well, why is he doing this?" Well, one, you can probably relate to this. He played 5 years in college, so he's
Literally,
way more developed than a lot of these other
he's a
NBA
20 he's a
guys.
25 he's a 24 25-year-old rookie compared to an 18-year-old jumping in the league. Imagine that's 7 years we're talking about.
So, but just the Lakers giving him the keys when Westbrook was traded. Do you think what are your thoughts on Austin Reeves just as a player and like his ceiling and like how good he is? Because I mean, he's such a crafty player.
Man, people forget, like, people forget he started his career at Wichita State, which is not
Yeah.
no schlack program. Like,
No,
he
Division
was he
One.
was and he was playing for a coach, Greg Marshall, who,
Commercial, yeah.
is one of the
Yep.
more well-respected coaches at NCAA. And then when
Hmm.
he transferred to Oklahoma, which by the way was the most picture perfect system for how he plays, he just got put on a bigger platform. Now, I know the American Conference at Wichita is a big league with UConn and all those other schools, but you went to the Big 12, there was no
Hmm.
drop off.
No.
That's what you got to look at. And
Yep.
then, back to your point when they traded Russell Westbrook, like kind of like with me at Nova, like that's the organization, the coaches speaking volumes of how much faith they have in you, and
Yeah.
when you hear and see that faith, it's kind of easy to sit back and be like, all right, like they're pretty much telling me like, hey, like we trust you, we want you to do this. Look at the move we just made for you because you play the same position as him. You do everything is the same as him. You're just games are different.
I think
But they
I think for Austin Reeves too, another thing about him is his level of IQ, how smart of a player he really is, because he's not as
he's very smart.
he's not as athletically gifted as some of these other players, but he makes up for it in other situations. And
He
he's just a very high IQ player, and I think that's what really helps him out a
one
lot.
thing
And
I one thing I like about Austin, man, is the confidence.
yeah.
He has such confidence that I love about him. But
Hmm.
one thing I love about Austin that he does better than a lot of other rookies is he knows how to play within his role. And I
Yes.
think that is so big in the NBA. Not every guy is going to get 15 to 20 shots a game. Not
No.
every guy is going to play 30 minutes. Like what
Right.
he does, he plays so well off of others, which in my opinion is a skill. Like, do you know how hard it is to play with LeBron James? Go ask all the other guys who tried and miserably failed.
And
And
then they
this
come.
guy did it with,
Yeah.
and then they go to different organizations, Contavious Caldwell Pope, and literally flourish. And it's just like, he's literally, again, he's the hardest guy to play for. And he stepped in and he did it no problem. And that just is a testament to, his feel and IQ, man, because I don't care what people say. Playing for LeBron James, I understand he's high IQ and all that, but it is one of the hardest things because the media makes it one of the hardest things.
Right.
Anytime there's anything negative with LeBron or anything, like the first thing people do, you see Lakers media, you see how they just crucified D'Angelo Russell, like
Yeah.
they
I was
they
just
just
about to
go at
say he's
they go
gone.
at you.
He's
They go
probably
at you.
gone. Yeah.
Like because of how he played, he's probably going to be gone. And if you go look at D'Angelo Russell when he played on other teams, he's been good in the NBA. He's
I mean,
easily going to get picked up.
he was good in the regular season, D'Angelo Russell. It's just his ability in the playoffs, it just didn't really translate into the postseason. But also,
Yeah,
Denver did a really good job with having Bruce Brown on him and KCP, like more physical
adjustments.
adjustments, more physical guards than D'Angelo Russell. But you can't sit here and tell me D'Angelo Russell couldn't go drop 30 on another team or on any given night. I mean, he was hot
1,000%
for the
agree.
Lakers in the regular season late when they traded
People
for him.
people forget people forget when he was in Minnesota, man. I mean, he was
Yeah.
playing well up there too. Like there was a reason Golden State even made that trade for him too and gave him that extension. Like, like you gotta look at why these guys do these things. And again, back to my point, man, playing, it's not LeBron's fault. It's
No.
it's 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 always been difficult for guys to play with LeBron because of the limelight. The limelight is just so big. It's anytime you have the littlest mess up or consistently doing it, it's gonna start and it's tough, man. But yeah,
it's
no,
the
I
it's
give
the
credit to
it's
Austin
it's
Reeves.
the truth. It's the truth. D'Angelo Russell, back to your point too, was the time when he was on the Nets, he brought them to the playoffs when they
He was an
were.
all-star. He was
Yeah.
an all-star. He literally was a first team selection all-star starter for the Brooklyn Nets. People
He,
forget that. Like he
his
wasn't like,
his
yeah,
career
his
average
career is
his
just
career average is 17 points a game, 17.1. So it's not like he's some bum and he's some role player.
no.
He's a starting point guard in the NBA. It's just, and
Like
also too, another thing with guys don't understand too is this team is really new. The chemistry is not always going to be there right away
they just
because
made the move at the
they
deadline. Yeah,
just made the move. It's like it's a lot of people
it
don't
takes time.
understand. It takes time. Give them a season under their belt, an off season under their belt, working together, playing together, understanding one another. It's not just, hey, you come in, you're an all-star, let's just all do it together. It doesn't always work
Agreed.
out like the Warriors had with Durant, Curry, Clay, and Draymond. And that was also a
Agreed.
very different situation. And D'Angelo Russell and Kevin Durant are completely different players, but just the aspect of the chemistry.
Agreed. Agreed. I mean, again, it's some markets are tough to play for. I'm a Knicks fan, so you want to talk about one of the toughest. You want to talk about one of the toughest markets to play for, and
Yeah.
the fact that a guy, it is what it is, and the media is never going to change that aspect because that's technically their job. Their
Yep.
job is to promote that aspect of the game, and
Yep.
it's tough, man. But no, I mean, no, you don't just go to Ohio State, get drafted top five overall, and have a career average of 17 points per game and be called a scrub. I highly doubt that. Yeah, so
And real basketball players and actually understand that too. That's also another thing. But yeah, I mean, 100%. Jalen Brunson, one night he's amazing, the next night he's horrible in the New York's media's eye because it's just how those big markets, like
it's
you
ebbs
said,
and flows, and that's their job. It's their job
Boston,
to do that. So
Boston, LA, New York, those markets right there, these fans, they expect all those years with the Patriots, all the championships they won, the
they're
Red
just so
Sox, the
accustomed to it.
Lakers. They're so accustomed to it. So when one night the guy has an amazing night, and the next night he's horrible, he's the worst player. We need to trade him. It's actually crazy how it
It's
all
tough,
actually
man.
unfolds. It's tough, like you said.
It's tough.
So to end the show, I always give my guests 5 questions. Well, number one, what is something that's true that nobody agrees with you on?
Something that's true that nobody agrees with me on, man. Honestly, something that's true that nobody agrees with me on. I would say right now, people are probably going to judge me for this. I honestly think Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best player in the league. It's undoubtedly like
Yeah.
some people say it's LeBron because he's still in the league. Some
No, not
people say it's
anymore.
KD. I'm sorry if you average 33, 11, and 6 on a 5-year span, and if you go look at the resume he has at 27 years old, put it to you this way: if Giannis Antetokounmpo retired today, he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
100% too. I had this debate with a couple friends of mine a few days ago about this, and I understand now that I knew this before, but now I really understand that as a whole unit. Basketball Hall of Fame, it's not the NBA Hall of Fame. So he would
No,
technically get in because of Greece, his time away from NBA. So like that, it's also another thing too I've understood because my friends were like,
it's
Luka's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm like, yeah, because it's the Basketball Hall of Fame.
it's a basketball Hall of Fame, 1,000%. He has literally one of the most decorated all around resumes in the world from his EuroLeague and so far his tenure in the NBA. No doubt, no
Yeah,
doubt.
no, that I completely agree with. Okay, so number two, who is the best basketball player you have ever played against?
The best basketball player I ever played against, man, honestly, like it's funny because we had a couple battles, but
Mhm.
I give credit to Antonio Blakeney, man.
Oh
People for
yeah.
people don't understand. Like we were in the same class in high school, and when I was actually a sophomore in high school at Fort Myers, we played against when he was at Cardinal Mooney in Sarasota. We
Mhm.
both had like 25. It was a good game, but like over the years, man, like I just watched him develop, and I played against him a couple more times. I was like, dog, like, he is an elite two guard, man. Antonio Blakeney. If you knew growing up around us, you knew
Yep.
how raw Antonio Blakeney was.
He
I
he
have
was
mad
he
respect for him.
he was nasty. He was smooth. He was silky. He was quick
His
on his
scoring of
feet.
his scoring ability was just
Picking his
uncanny, man.
spots. He was able to pick his
He
spots when he
yeah.
wanted to. Yeah, he was legit. Number three, if you could meet anyone in the world today, who would you meet?
If I could meet anybody in the world, who would it be? Man, honestly, I would love to be able to sit down and have a quality conversation with tough. I'd have to. I wish Kobe, man.
Mm,
Like it sucks that that all went down, man. But just to sit down and be able to pick his mind, man. Be able to sit there and because you want to talk about somebody who not only had a just a will of a work ethic, man, but
yeah.
just the way he willed his teammates to win. And I would just love to be in the mind of Kobe Bryant, man.
Yeah, no, I like that one a lot. Number four, where would you relocate if you were forced to leave the country?
If I was forced to leave the United States, I would love to go to relocate to either Australia or the coast of Greece. Just two of the most beautiful places in the world, man. I'd be on the Gold Coast of Australia, or I'd be exactly where Giannis has one of his timeshares in Greece on that water right there,
Mhm.
man. Those are two beautiful places.
Number 5, what is the most stupid thing you've done in your entire life?
The most stupid thing I ever did in my entire life. Um, let's let's just say my senior year we had this fountain on campus at Nova, and we just won a big game. It was a conference game with double OT, and let's just say we had a few too many that night, and we
Oh,
all we all ended up going for a dip in the fountain on the school campus, man, and
is that
we
like
all got into.
is that like
Oh, you're not
forbidden?
allowed to do that. Yeah, you are not allowed to do that. And
Uh,
yeah, let's just say we kind of tried to play it off, but we then ended up going into we had a team meeting one day, and instead of watching film, the first thing he put on was the security camera footage of all of us in the fountain. So yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So, as always, guys, make sure to follow us on Instagram at the IQM Pod. Make sure to follow us on Spotify, the Inquisitive Mamba Podcast, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as well. We just hit 1,000 plays all time. It was a pleasure to have you on today's show, Mark. It was really awesome to hear your perspective of the game of basketball, your college career, kind of unpacked it all, just from the highs to the lows to the glamours to not so much the glitz, the coaching, the phone calls. It was just awesome to have you on, and also a little piece of the NBA, kind of hearing your perspective as a former Division 1 and Division 2 athlete, really understanding the game for people who are learning, and with this new form of media with social media and podcasting and learning from former athletes like yourself. And it was a pleasure to have you on. And as always, guys, we will see you next time. But before we do end, Mark's got to plug himself and go from there.
Definitely. Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, I really enjoyed this, man. I was looking forward to it. I'm so glad you reached out. I know it's been a while since we've had a talk, but yeah, man. I'm glad I could chop it up with you, man. Definitely would like to come back on sometime. I enjoyed this a lot, man. Yeah, but definitely if you guys want to, I do online skill development as well. Any other basketball stuff, if you want, you can go follow my socials. On Instagram at Mark Matthews 7. Any of those would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, man, I do any kind of basketball content, so that'd be great.
Thank you so much, as always, guys, and we will see you next time.